So this is very challenging. The presentations have been terrific, and I congratulate each and every one of the presenters for your programs, what you've been able to accomplish at your institutions. And I'm going to be relatively brief. This is really a conceptual piece. Entrepreneurship 2020 is a program that I'm working with several universities on and some corporations. The idea is to create entrepreneurs more readily. And we've heard a little bit about that with some of the speakers earlier this morning. The simulation projects certainly lend themselves to entrepreneurship. Aerospace programs lend themselves to entrepreneurship, the satellites. And actually, I've been working with drones that transport people, organizations that are putting drones together that transport people to be entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship is something that is important to all of us. And for us, in the academy, in higher education, there's not a divide between what happens in the liberal arts and practical application. You need them both in our society. We need people that are civic leaders, people that understand industry, and we also need individuals, our graduates need to be versed in the social sciences as well. So this program that I'm going to discuss briefly with you develops entrepreneurs, supports existing entrepreneurs, and it talks about how to create business and the importance of that through our institutions. Our universities and colleges across the world really, we think, have more of an opportunity to have an economic impact on their region and their communities. And we happen to think that that's part of the responsibility of institutions to have that economic impact. But why doesn't that happen with small businesses more, family businesses, and with entrepreneurs? Well, how many of you, this will be brief, how many of you had an idea at some point in your life that you wanted to open a business yourself? You wanted to be in business for yourself. Many people have had that, and even many of our students have that. And if you look at the various universities across the world, entrepreneurship is taught almost at every university in one form or another. And why is it, if that's true, that only 1 of 100 students actually succeeds as an entrepreneur once they start their business? And that's a very low percentage of success rate. That's a low success rate. So what we're trying to do with this program is to create businesses, business opportunities, help entrepreneurs develop the mindset necessary to create businesses, and for us to work with them through every phase of the project so that virtually all of them can succeed as entrepreneurs. So it's not a factory in the sense that you have 40 students taking entrepreneurship courses. And out of those 40 students, maybe 3 or 4 will actually try to open businesses. What happens is that we take 7 to 10 students as entrepreneurs that have business ideas, and we work with those students through every aspect of entrepreneurship, including a break-even analysis further down the road. After they've done their business plan, they've implemented, and they've actually gotten funding from a funding source. One of the things that we begin to talk about with our entrepreneurs is, why do you want to do it? And there are some great examples this morning. With the simulations, that's a huge service to our community, a huge opportunity for us to grow, and to have an impact on our society. So, and that's a key question for entrepreneurs. It's not about making the money. When you focus on that, that's a recipe for failure with entrepreneurship. It's about what are you doing for our society, what product or service are you going to provide? And it begins with humility. And we begin with that because entrepreneurship is about values. What you think is important and why. And it's not about you as an individual. It's about what your service or your company, your organization can provide to our society and to your community. One of the things that typically happens in business, and I'm a former business school dean, is that people think that entrepreneurship is a step-by-step project or program, which it is, but it's not linear. It's not you take one step forward and another step forward and another step forward and another step forward. Sometimes you have to take 2 or 3 steps backwards to take one step forward as an entrepreneur. And when you do that, it takes longer than you think. I could tell you hundreds of stories of entrepreneurs who did business plans, and they thought, all right, by year 2 or year 3, I will be running a successful business, and it does not work that way. And we teach that for our entrepreneurs, our students, and we also talk about life's balances. Because as entrepreneurs, it's easy to get wrapped up in entrepreneurship. It's easy to focus only on that. And you're going to do that because everything you do outside of your family and recreation is going to relate to your business. And you'll be exhausted, exhilarated, frustrated, and excited. And for entrepreneurs, that can all happen within an hour. And we talk to our students about that, and we get them prepared for that, because that's very important. And that's part of the journey. Understanding what they stand for, what their mission is. Confusion. That word confusion up there, there's a lot of confusion as entrepreneurs go through their processes, particularly in areas such as areas that were spoken of today, simulations, aerospace management, energy. Lots of entrepreneurs in those areas, lots of confusion, lots of taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, lots of things that we don't understand or we don't anticipate. Do we always, even in our higher education lives, have you been able to anticipate every issue, every problem, every complaint? No. And for entrepreneurs, oftentimes it's even worse, because they're trying to address gaps in the industry. They're trying to challenge the status quo all the time. And they're trying to learn how to work their money, but they're trying to make money, all at the same time. Change. It's almost a cliche now. How do you handle change? How do you manage change? How do you lead change? Well, as entrepreneurs, you have to train your staff in how to promote change on a regular basis. Innovation is key in entrepreneurship. No matter how good your product is today, whether it's a simulation, whether it's aerospace, whether it's energy, or something else, or drones, it's going to have to be better a year from now, 2 years from now. So you can't wait for the change to happen to you. You have to create an environment in your organization in such a way that the change is built into your standard operating procedure, and that's what we teach. How to build the change into your standard operating procedure so that your organization's capacity and capability to adapt to change is constant. And this is something you revisit on a regular basis. Knowing your clients, knowing your customers, all of this stuff is, all of these things are things that most of you have heard for years. And most of you have lived this, whether you're in a university setting, trying to recruit students, like my colleague at the University of Central Oklahoma is doing. All of that is important, but how do you improve their situation? And that's true in business as well. How do you improve the situation of your clients, of your customers? And you have to understand what their worldview is as you do that. But in addition to understanding that worldview, you also have to understand if whatever your product or service is it marketable? Is it profitable? Can you make money at it? Who are your competitors, and do you understand your competitors? And I would argue that as you take courses in the humanities, in philosophy, in the arts, all of that helps you develop that worldview and helps you to relate to others that have their own worldview as you try to grow your business. So it's not an us versus them, it's not the liberal arts and the business, it's all integrated, particularly for small business. And this is a traditional thinking in terms of entrepreneurship and developing an entrepreneurial curriculum. And there's nothing new, there's nothing magic here. It's basic stuff. What's your vision? A marketing plan, a sales plan, a financial plan, a human resource plan, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats, understanding your SWOT analysis. And I know as a university president, I did this at every institution I've ever been at. And now we're teaching small businesses to do that, universities are doing it. And what's your growth strategy? Because if you're standing still, you're not going to make it. It's not going to happen for you. There's got to be a growth strategy, and you have to understand what that is. And for me, how to create a great elevator pitch for a small business is huge. Because as an entrepreneur, whether you're an engineer, a computer scientist, a historian, you're selling something. And most of the time, it's yourself. It's yourself. And what we don't do in many entrepreneurial programs, particularly because we don't have time, our faculty don't have time for that, is to work with our students, teaching them how to do that. And that's teaching our students how to do that is a one-on-one type of endeavor. You can't do that in a class of 50 or 500. It has to be customized for each student, each future entrepreneur. And then the finances. Finding the money. And we've talked a little bit about money that's come from the government, the federal government, the state government. Certainly, entrepreneurs are looking for venture capital. And there are several venture capital firms in this country, in the United States, and certainly around the world. But the key is, for entrepreneurs, is to find the venture capital firm that fits your need. Every venture capital firm is not good for every entrepreneur. It does not work. It has to fit your particular need, your values, your mission, what you stand for as an organization. The venture capitalists have to be able to relate to what you're doing and to what you value in your organization. A lot of times in our courses, we teach them just to go for the money. But it's much, much more than that. It's not just going for the money. It's the values that the organizations have that deliver the money as well. And finally, I'm coming to the end, mistakes. And some of the mistakes that entrepreneurs make that we've found over the years is that the entrepreneurs, many of them, don't surround themselves with the best people. You have to find the best people you can possibly find, just like a university president. Your cabinet has to be the best people you could possibly find in their discipline, doing their work. As an entrepreneur or as a university president, if you're the best person at everything in your organization, something's wrong. Something's wrong. And I mentioned this earlier, don't go for the money. Go with what your passion is and what the contribution is. And once that happens, the money eventually will come. Social media is huge, profit margins. You have to know what those are. And I will end this way by mentioning a couple of things. We've got a lot of smart students, graduate and undergraduate students, in our universities and colleges around the world. From a percentage standpoint, very few of them actually start their own businesses. Many of them go to work for other companies. Why? Why do they do that as opposed to starting their own businesses? Well, one of the reasons we hear is that they need the security. They need to understand where their money is coming from on a daily basis. Well, with this particular program, we help mitigate that in this way. After they've taken the coursework, and it's a small setting, by the way, so to the extent that you can customize instruction, instruction is customized. Once you get past that point, they typically have the draft of a strategic plan in place. They know what the basics are of that, and certainly with any strategic plan, it's never final, it's always evolving, it's a living document. But once they get to that point and they're ready to start their business and we've helped them locate funding sources and whatnot, we then work with them after they've left the classroom. And we stay with them generally for up to 3 years or so as advisors to them to ensure that they get to the break-even point in their business or in their organization. So after the coursework happens, the training and the instruction continues because it's an ongoing process, and as they move forward, as advisors, mentors, coaches, our job is to ensure that they succeed in their business. So I will stop there. There's a lot more to it, but I wanted to, at this late time, just make sure that you get the idea conceptually of what the difference between this Entrepreneurship Program 2020 is with what the traditional entrepreneurship programs have been to this point over the last few decades. So I will stop there and certainly respond to any questions or comments you may have as well. Thank you so much for your attention.
Keith, wonderful presentation. Really, I'm thinking while I'm listening to you, we do a lot of similar things in our school because as we talk about innovation education, entrepreneurship is definitely a big part of this innovation education. My question is how large scale, of course now I'm comparing US university and Chinese university because China government promote innovation and entrepreneurship nationwide. I'm just thinking your experience from your university, what the percentage of students have a desire to become an entrepreneurship?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for that. Actually, many hundreds of students actually come to universities or to a course with the idea that they want to be their own boss. They want to start a business. They may or may not have an idea for that. But what we do is, because we try to customize virtually everything, we select students, and usually it's between 7 and 10, and we have 7 to 10 students per faculty member. So those students that really have ideas, that would really like to advance those ideas, we work with very, very closely because we want a 100% success rate amongst those students, not a 5% success rate among 200 students. So it's labor intensive, but that's the difference between what we do and what happens generally around the world in entrepreneurship. And I'd be happy to talk with you later as well.
Thank you very much indeed for that presentation. It excited a lot of interest in me. As a president of a university and developing environment, it has become critically important for us to take entrepreneurship seriously. Our problem is fear of where you will get your meal tomorrow.
That's right.
You see, you have drained your parents of money through fees. You have 5, 6, 7 siblings looking up to you to pull them through, and you are trying to experiment with yourself for the next 2 or 3 years. And I would be most interested in finding out the various strategies you can take so that while you are busy developing your business, you have also other ways and means of earning a living, no matter how small. I know it's kind of contradictory, but I'm quite excited by your model because it's so relevant to a developing university, particularly a university in a developing environment. I would like to follow this up with you on a person-to-person level. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. The question had to do with how are the students going to get their next meal if they're busy trying to open small businesses and there's not a paycheck coming in on a regular basis, and they can't, and they've got families, they're the first generation college student, for example, come from moderate means. How can they do this? Well, the answer, because that is the question, the answer is that we help them find funding sources from the financial investment world. We work with for lack of a better term, angel investors to invest in these small businesses. And what comes with that investment is that these entrepreneurs get a paycheck every month, every 2 weeks, whatever it happens to be. So that the money is built in to the investment from the financial investment firm. And we don't leave them, we don't leave the organization, we work with them and their financial investor until they've hit at least their break-even point in their small business. Okay? Thank you for that question, appreciate it.